Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you, Emma, for that. It's quite interesting, I think, because I'm going to look back at the Crossrail project, which is really quite different to the A14, but it does have some similar elements to HS2. So I think the two projects together really are quite a good exercise in kind of looking back and seeing what both projects did in post-ex. The big rural element of the A14, and then the urban sections of HS2 from Crossrail. So, program and delivery, as we saw for the A14, the way the project is set up is very important to how it's delivered. Yeah, and Crossrail in particular, just a quick recap for everyone. It's about 40 active work sites across the southeast of England, largely in central London, but also out to Essex, Berkshire, and Kent on the overground sections. Didn't produce a lot of new information, but quite important for some of the built heritage aspects. So very diverse range of environments, and therefore very diverse scope of archaeology. That is just a relook at the research framework, and just to point out really that there were some kind of route-wide potential areas identified, and some kind of regional subzones around the Thames Estuary, for example, which we crossed twice, and then a lot of kind of city subzones with very particular themes in terms of heritage and archaeology. So, and where I'm going with this is that there was going to be no kind of one-size-fits-all post-ex output for a project like this. You know, very much we adopted eventually a facsimile approach and made sure that the content was best presented. At the same time, we needed to keep some consistency, of course, across different suppliers as well. So that's just a list of the scope. This is just a diagram I put together for the senior management to show that when the fieldwork finishes, you're only halfway through the project, because that is a continual discussion on infrastructure projects. But also you can see from here that program meant that a lot of things were finishing, yeah, at various points in a multi-year program. And what we didn't want to do was to be waiting to get on with the post-ex on this project to the end, because it wouldn't have suited what was essentially a hard end date for finishing the project. So to be able to start stuff and start grouping stuff in post-excavation early on was important consideration. So we produced a UPD in 2013. So the actual timeline for the project was really, fieldwork started in 2010. The project had to be finished by 2016, and the last fieldwork finished in 2015. So we were presented with this very particular set of timescales that meant fieldwork assessment, post-excavation, dissemination wasn't necessarily going to work on a whole project. So the UPD started by dividing up a number of work streams in different locations. We'll have a look at some of these later. But the key consideration was the diversity of the scope, the diversity of the delivery teams, the wide range of audiences. So the archaeology and the heritage is really addressing a number of different research areas, so a huge number of different audiences, and really what amounted to a very short 3-year program to get it all published and archived and finished. So the program was identified with a project closeout date of November 2016. And you can just see these colour bars, which you won't see from the back. I can't even see from here. Included a mobilisation phase, a delivery phase 1, so-called really assessment work, a detailed analysis and writing up phase, and a closing out milestone set in the programme. And you can just see from that timeline, you know, that really we were starting as early as possible to get things done and out of the way. And that leads to the type of headline publication that we adopted. So we decided to create, if you like, a project-specific journal, which different sites and themes could be fitted into, known as the Crossrail Archaeology series. It provided a consistent design and brand because TfL, the project sponsors, extremely keen on all project outputs having that type of branding and recognizable TfL project outputs. It needed to be in an accessible style that suited this broad range of audiences. Yeah. So it wasn't the classic technical monograph reporting. It wasn't just a public book. It was somewhere in the middle. And the idea was to aim at as many different audiences as possible with one output. It wanted to be portable. The feedback at the time was, although this is quite a small one actually, some of these large hardback monographs are not exactly portable. And the feedback from the stakeholders on this project was, look, can't we look at something that is a bit more amenable to carrying around with you? There's a lot of different people potentially want to pick these up in bookshops around London and so on. We planned a load of events in terms of book launches to promote them as well. And then Crossrail and TfL had an extremely active press release process that they followed the post-ex equally to the fieldwork. In fact, as a project, there was no real separation between the fieldwork and post-ex stages. So press release and media interest was equal in the post-ex stage as it had been during fieldwork. The other baseline requirement was a fixed price on each output of £10, a nominal amount, but again, making it accessible through museum bookshops and so on at a fairly low cost at the time. It was distributed through Museum of London and Oxbow Books primarily, and also MOLA. And then agreed up front to be made available as a download once the hard copies are gone on ADS, and that's in fact happened. So just a slide of the 10 volumes that were produced. As I was saying, extremely diverse. We can pick out a few later, which are looking at themes route-wide across the whole project, and then a number which are very site-specific. And this allowed us to have that kind of variability. They're available from ADS now. The Crossrail Archaeology series has been released just last year. And other publications similar to the A14 included the technical publications, which included both popular articles and journal articles, and were envisaged to be collated into a volume. Never actually happened, but there's the mock-up of volume 3, the technical papers. But they all exist and are documented. So just have a look at some of the other products, apart from the classic publication of results. Digital access was a very big part of the project, and our digital access website was kind of live during the entirety of the project and built up public access to all the reports as they were produced. And then obviously, subsequently, the ADS archive released at the end. Social media and media engagement, as you know, probably a very big part of Crossrail's ambitions. And then also exhibitions. We'll touch on other books that emerged from the project by others, and then collaborative research, and also permanent display of finds within stations. So the lessons learned website live throughout the project included the Archaeology report archive, subsequently replaced by the ADS archive. Website and YouTube channel, a lot of this is still live, but as we know, over time, most of these things will become harder to find, disappear, be taken down. But as I say, this activity continued through the post-ex, and I think that's a lesson for HS2 as well, that we don't just stay quiet during the post-ex project. TV documentaries. So we had 2 episodes of Channel 4's Secret History, follow the fieldwork and post-excavation for 2 of the key burial sites, Liverpool Street, Bedlam Burial Ground, and also the Charterhouse Cemetery. Different type of dissemination there. Exhibitions. We held the first major exhibition in 2012, known as Bison to Bedlam. This was a trial event which was successful and therefore turned into a longer exhibition in the visitor centre right in the heart of London, known as Portals to the Past. And then a final exhibition with Museum of London Docklands was planned and implemented at the end of the project. This ran for about 8 months in London. There it is, Tunnel, the Archaeology of Crossrail. Received a lot of attention, back on the project right up to the end date. Nice write-up from Maeve Kennedy there in The Guardian. Also, an outcome of that was a popular book, Tunnel, the Archaeology of Crossrail, that we put together with Museum of London, and that was basically a book to accompany the exhibition. I mentioned other publications. We developed a relationship with Gillian Tyndall, the author, during the project. She was really keen, always coming down to every public lecture, visiting site whenever she could. And she's I suppose you'd call her output, if you're not aware of it, a London writer. She writes about communities in the past and links them to the modern day London places. She's a biographer of London. And she produced Tunnel Through Time, a new route for an old journey, based on her experiences with Crossrail. So another thought there, an alternative type of output. And it doesn't have to stop at the non-fiction. You know, why not influence fiction as well? Collaboration, just quickly. So during post-excavation, we collaborated with Birkbeck. Master's students training in osteology were given access to the assemblages. Another highly successful element of the post-excavation was a crowd-sourced research into the Bedlam Burial Ground Register. And I know this was also repeated on HS2, for example, at St James. Digging out all those historical records of such scale. We couldn't do it in the project, but with these amazing group of volunteers, we could add that very valuable additional output. There they are. And the project design for that, written by Marit Listra, is up on the Lessons Learned website as well, along with all the other technical papers produced. So, as we say, the Crossrail Archaeology series is available, as is in the entire archive. I just wanted to focus on a couple of the titles. I don't know how I'm doing for time. 1 minute. Built heritage. I mean, in my experience, this was a really good example of how built heritage plays a role in these types of projects. It's not just the archaeology, and we've got a lot of this type of resource on HS2 to look at. This book really brought those buildings and their histories and the people involved in them to life, and is a great example. Another one, more of a regional, sub-regional city focus, the origins development of West London, extremely accessible, interesting read, bringing all sorts of themes out in terms of life in West London through time. In those areas affected by the project. Another really good synthetic product. And then railway transport. Third mention of the day, but there was obviously a big element of Crossrail, a huge number of historic railway assets recorded and written up in this volume. The site specifics also really, really important. Here's just, I picked out 3 examples. The Rome in London, Liverpool Street, Stepney Green Motor Manor, and the Thames Ironworks, an industrial site which the book allows a real deep dive into London Docklands and shipbuilding past. So really variable output. I should probably leave it there. If I can have one more minute, Alex.
Okay.
Yeah. Just in terms of research impacts, back in 2010, 11, ancient DNA was just emerging, and the very first whole genome of, say, the pathogen Yersinia pestis has only just been discovered. So one of the big impacts of the project was providing these new samples from 2 sites in London to allow those researchers at McMaster University in Canada to get hold of, absolute secure context examples to help them build that genome. Another one, and it is extraordinarily difficult, I found out. It's not an easy thing to do. Another one was the work we did with Keele University, again, at post-excavation stage. Additional surveys used to really try and put what was quite a small keyhole investigation in Charterhouse Square into more context. And Jamie's team at Keele, who use this kind of multi methodology surveys in geophysics, managed to do some really important work in Charterhouse Square outside the area of impact to really improve our understanding of the context of those finds. So a couple of the one and only legacy on stations was the Bedlam Burial Ground. There's the CAD plan. That's a 3D extrusion of it. And the one thing we managed to get agreed in terms of stations was to represent the Bedlam Burial Ground within the ticket hall at the right level where it was on one of the dividing walls. So that's kind of in situ, correct position of the graves at a scale, obviously. But that was the one opportunity to get some of the archaeology into the permanent design. There wasn't a lot of appetite for it, but it's a really important conversation to have also for a project like HST. So I better leave it there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.